Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin. Welcome to Real Agriculture. Today, we're going to talk about drones and where these unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, fit on the farm, specifically when it comes to spraying crops. As of January 2024, it is still illegal for farmers to apply crop protection products, herbicides, and fungicides with a drone, but many are eager to give it a shot. When it comes to spraying with drones, however, regulators, have been slow to give the green light for takeoff. To talk about the drone revolution and why it may be some time before farmers get a chance to spray, I'm joined by my guest. He is OMAFRA's application technology specialist, Jason Deveau. We know him as the spray guy. Hi, Jason. Hey, thanks for dropping by.
Hi, Bern. Thanks for having me.
Now, Jason, what really sparked this conversation for me, was the presentation you delivered at the Ontario Agricultural Conference in January. You set out to share all the latest research and data on how drones could revolutionize spraying, but you decided to take a different direction. What happened?
Yeah, I pulled an audible. I worked over the Christmas break gathering all the data from all the groups that I'd worked with over the last few months, and I had a lot of really great graphs. And when I looked closely at it, I realized I think I was doing everybody a disservice because all that data would give the impression that we know what we're doing with drones. And I pulled the pin at the last minute and decided, instead of showing all that data and I think misleading an audience, let's talk to them about what we don't know about drones. So it changed the tone of the whole talk, and I'm glad it went that way.
Yeah. Now, you said, there's a number of factors that complicate drone application. Let's start with drone technology. You said in your presentation, it's not simple technology. It's not like flying a helicopter.
No, not at all. And that's the first thing people say is, we can spray from a helicopter. Why can't we spray from a drone? They're the same thing. Well, they're not, for one simple reason. When a helicopter is spraying, it's at full velocity and there's no downwash. That is to say, there's no downward wind. Sure, if a helicopter is hovering, you're going to see a lot of wind produced that'll drive spray down. But if you ever watch a helicopter spraying, once it reaches full speed, the spray just pours out behind like a plane or like Superman's cape. On the other hand, rotary drones, no matter how fast they fly, always create a downwash, and that's going to affect how droplets move.
Now, what are some of the other factors, Jason, that complicate flight? Speed, weight, wind, altitude. Hey, a lot to consider.
It is, and we won't get into all of it here, but I'll tap on the big ones. Anyone that's spraying from a drone will want to get a little extra altitude, because the higher you are, ideally, the wider your swath or the area that you cover. But the cost of doing that is your spray's in the air a long time, and a lot of stuff will drift or escape the spray. So that's no good. We need to find that balance. The speed that you fly also has an impact on the swath, or the shape of the spray that hits the ground. Right now, we think the faster you fly or the more headwind, the wider the swath, and vice versa. And the weight of the drone creates that pressure, that downwash, in tandem with what the rotors are producing. And that's not fixed either. You fly out full, you come back empty. That means that downward pressure changes while you're flying. And each of those rotors, they're not even spinning at the same speed. That's what allows them to fly so eerily straight. So all these variables are changing constantly, and we honestly don't know what each of them do relative to the others and how that affects coverage. It's still the Wild West out there.
Now, you also have, the crop to contend with, right? Canopy, row direction, and factoring all that in, to figure out what that most effective swath width is for the spray.
Yeah, bang on. So best practices, best we understand it now, is to kind of emulate planes and helicopters. We do something called a fly-in. You spray water onto some sort of water-sensitive target or something that shows dye, and you go, okay, I'm covering so many feet or meters of width. And you work all that out on bare earth or maybe stubble, then you fly into the crop. And that affects your swath in all kinds of crazy ways. We don't even know if it's better to fly with a row or against a row. And all of this is still kind of spraying in a vacuum, because we've got ambient wind, we've got obstacles, topography, and it all impacts ultimately where the spray goes and where it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think from that, your conclusion at this point, our drones are sloppy, and the coverage can be highly variable, and we also have to take in herbicide labels, right? The actives and how they are formulated, and how do you formulate a product for drone spraying? Another challenge.
Sure, let's tap on both of those. Yeah, Drones can produce a pretty sloppy pattern. We're getting a better idea how to contend with that, but it's not like any other spray application. It's a very high peak and a very narrow span. So just imagine a bunch of shark's teeth. We really do need to work harder to figure out what swath width really is. As for the formulation, we're spraying almost neat. The biggest drone I've worked with holds 50 liters, and that brings us down to mix numbers here, 2 or maybe 5 gallons per acre. We'd prefer to see 5, but of course the growers want to push down to 2. And that means you're spraying some pretty viscous stuff that's not diluted, and there's no recirculation on these drones, no agitation. So it may require changes to formulation to get these products to work the way they would in a plane, in a helicopter, or a field sprayer.
Now, let's talk about overall performance here. You've done some comparisons. How do drones compare to a John Deere sprayer with a 100-foot swath, for example?
Well, I have been privy to some efficacy trials with agrochemical companies, and I won't get into that. But I will talk about what we saw with, we'll say tar spot's a good example for this. Tar spot, everyone hates tar spot. I don't hate tar spot. Tar spot turns a field of corn into water-sensitive paper for me. So here's what we saw as far as a physiological response. The 100-foot John Deere sprayer spraying fungicide did a great job battling tar spot. Nice green corn. The drones, which I helped with Drone Spray Canada figure out what the best effective swath width was, we flew an out and back, 5 gallons an acre and 3 gallons an acre, and we saw striping. That is to say, we saw green corn and then gray and then green, which means those two swaths didn't intersect with each other. We had gaps. And it surprised both of us because, we kind of skinned it a little bit and made sure we used the smallest swath we thought would be effective, and it was still smaller than that. And just to be fair, it's not just drones we're seeing this with. Helicopters and planes spraying for tar spot are also seeing striping because the dose response is so acute. If you miss, you can see that you missed. So I won't speak to efficacy, which is kind of surprising me that in some cases they are quite efficacious, but based on coverage and that physiological response, we got a long way to go.
Now, it looks like, we have some work to do, as you said, to get drones spraying herbicide on farm. You wrapped up your presentation with a list of things you feel, needs to happen before farmers can fly drones, with confidence. Run us through those.
Sure. And just like you said, this is my opinion, and opinions are worth what you paid for, and this one's free. There are a number of things that I think the PMRA needs before they're going to expand the registration of a label for drones. First thing we're waiting on is this international best practices document from the OECD. And I believe the 3rd version of that is out as of a couple weeks ago. We're going to review that, and that's international opinion on what's important with drones. Don't drift, no operator exposure, stuff like that. We are going to need operator exposure data. This isn't like any other method. With the exception of backpack sprayers, I can't think of any other time that you're going to bodily pick up the sprayer after you're done with it and throw it in the back of a truck. So we need to figure out, do you need full Tyvek, gloves? How does that work with the control panel? All still being done. And comparative efficacy. Does it work? In Canada, to register a product, we have to compare it against a known standard, and we're doing that now. And that's pretty much driven by the agrochemical companies, and they're all performing their own in-house studies. And we need residue data. Sure, I'm happy to eat that apple. Is there any more product left on it than there would be from a conventional method? Ag Canada took the lead on this. That data is all coming in now. I did the coverage part of that. 5 other PIs flew those trials in 4 different vegetable and fruit crops. So that information's coming too. We need drift data, not just for bystander and open water in places we don't want it to go, but just to understand what kind of buffer zones we might need. And that's an international effort that's going on with the Spray Drift Task Force all over the world. We should find out about that in the next 2 years. We need standard training, PETC in Canada. Think about Ontario Pest Education Program. We have to teach operators how to handle products safely for different agrochemical equipment. And right now they've only got their first draft on best practices there. I'm hoping to see that soon. And finally, it should be noted, it's not just Health Canada that's holding the reins on spraying from drones. It's Transport Canada because, you're in the air with this vehicle. And full credit to them, they came out of the gate running hard when this first emerged, when we started using optics on drones. And even that is changing now. How heavy can a drone be before you need a special flight operations certificate? And we're waiting on something called Gazette 2 to tell us about changes to registration and what pilots need to do to fly and spray these. Because right now, if you hired someone to spray, and don't, because it's illegal in Canada, come out next week. Yep, I'll put in my request. We should hear back in 3 months. Not terribly helpful. So, we have a lot to learn on how quickly there's a turnaround in permission as well.
As you say, a lot to do. What's your best guess on when it gets done when we fly drones on farm?
You going to hold me to this? I'm going to look back and regret this, aren't I? So it's 2024 right now. I'd be shocked to see one come out in 2 years. So 2026. And I don't expect it to be a herbicide. I expect it to be a fungicide.
Yeah,
now, before I just want to tap on this, people are going to think I'm singing doom and gloom. We are talking about broadcast arable land field crop applications. I think there's great utility in drones. At the moment, I don't think it's nice, even, uniform coverage in a broadcast style crop. I think it could be spot spraying or, rough terrain or even horticultural crops where you just want to hit right over a planted banded row. And that information's coming out too. So there aren't many people doing this research, but we're all talking and we're all learning. And it seems every 3 months something new comes to light. So we're making progress.
And in the grand scheme of things, 2 years isn't a long time. So hopefully get it done. I would encourage everyone to visit the Ontario Agricultural Conference website and check out Jason's full presentation. It's fascinating stuff. And Jason, you also have some other resources available at Sprayers 101 that farmers can tap into.
Yeah, it's been a little while, but we just produced another Exploding Sprayer Myths, and in the spirit of parody, and thanks to Byrne here, we knocked off Top Gun. So if anyone wants to go watch a lighthearted explanation of best practices with drones, viewer discretion, there's some dad bods in there at the end, but I do recommend you go check it out on RealAgriculture.com or Sprayers 101. Give you a laugh, and you'll learn something.
It was fun and very educational. Jason, always appreciate you making some time for Real Agriculture.